lifelong student of anything I'm interested in. So I didn't get started in genealogy until I retired. So 2014 is when I started doing genealogy, and then I did a DNA test when I first heard about them, and I didn't pay any attention to it because at that time the focus was looking at where your ancestors were from, and I thought, I don't know, how valid all that information is. And so I didn't really do anything with DNA until a few years ago. And I've been very fortunate in that I've had the opportunity to attend some conferences. Blaine Bettinger, who is an expert in DNA, conducted a week-long course at where Joanne and I went. It was at Georgia that year, IGHR, and that helped a lot. Of course, I've got his books, got 2 books. I've got those, and I've attended other conferences and seminars. I just stay on webinars all the time. If I'm not looking at pure genealogy, it's DNA related. So I'm just a nerd when it comes to stuff like this. I just like it. So I wanted to start out by emphasizing that if you want to do a really good job of working on DNA, you need to be a really good genealogist, because working on DNA is not something that really benefits you if you're just going to look at that without then taking what you think is your connection to a common ancestor. You've got to document that, and you need to do thorough research before you draw any conclusions. You can draw invalid conclusions, and there is such a thing as having a connection that's not related to an actual ancestor. So you've got to be able to then take whatever you're working with and combine that basic, fundamental, good genealogy technique to really determine. All right, so I wanted to talk about the Leeds Method tonight because I like it because it's simple. And it is easy to use when you're just working with Ancestry. As those of you who are members of Ancestry, and by the way, if I say Amazon during the night, I mean Ancestry, because half the time when I'm talking about Ancestry, I say Amazon. I utilize both. So anyway, in Ancestry, you don't have the segment DNA information. They don't provide a chromosome browser and those types of things that you need to use at some of the other sites, Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, and those sites. The good thing about Ancestry, though, is that you can download your DNA from Ancestry and upload it to one of the other sites. So if you want to also utilize everything that's available on Family Tree DNA, which I would encourage you to do, you can do that. And it doesn't cost anything unless you want to utilize all of their tools, which is just like to $19. But for $19, you get the benefit of 2 websites and databases that has all kinds of DNA matches. So tonight I'm going to talk about the Leeds Method, and if you're like me, hearing about it the first time, you don't ever get all the details, and I'm going to go through kind of step by step, but that doesn't mean when you go home and start to do some work with this that you're going to necessarily remember all the details. You say, now what did she say about such and such? So I would suggest that you take this down, because that is Dana Leeds. She's the one that created this, and it's her method, and so if you have any questions, she would be the expert. I'm not. She's the expert. And the other thing I wanted to mention, excuse me, I'm going to be using my mother's DNA because I'm only interested in her side of the family. So I didn't want to use mine because then I have to take into account my daddy's side of the family, which I'm not interested in for this project. So, that's my mom, and this is her family. On her dad's side of the family, it's Bowman, and we have Bowman, Graham, and Justice and Yarborough. On her mother's side, Teddington was her, or Teddleton, I think is actually the correct way, but they went by Teddington. And it's Teddington and that infernal Johnson that we all deal with. And Couples and Richardson. So those are the people that I'm gonna be working with. Now, what you wanna do when you go into Ancestry, you're going to only be looking at your matches between 90 and 400 centimorgans. Centimorgans is just a way of measuring how much DNA you share with someone else. So you don't want to look at all of your matches. That's going to have a lot of stuff in it. You want to zero in 90 to 400 centimorgans. That's going to give you your basically second and third cousins, which is going to help you determine who your 4 great-grandparent pairs are. The goal here is to separate your matches into 4 great-grandparent couples. So you can go in and look at all matches, and under shared DNA, you can actually put in the number of centimorgans that you're going to be working with, and then you're going to apply that, and you'll get a list. And this is what you're going to be working with. The first one on this list is 385 centimorgans, so it's within that 90 to 400 range. And this is what you're going to see. So this is what you're going to be working with, is this set of matches. Now, what you want to do is take that list of shared matches. The first person on the list, you're going to go in and list whatever their shared matches are. So you look at their shared matches. So you're going to look at people that match you and one other person, and then the people that share that match. Does that make sense? So then what you're going to do is you're just going to list all those people on your spreadsheet. Excel works great if you're comfortable working with Excel. So you're just going to list everybody that's, well, back up. I'm a step ahead of myself. This is the list of your shared matches. I got a step ahead of myself, so pardon me. So this actually is your shared matches that you got when you entered 90 to 400 centimorgans. So that's what you enter first. Then you take that first person and you look at their shared matches. So I hope I didn't confuse you, but this is step 2. You look at their shared matches. And that's where you will go down this list for every person that you've listed. If that person's shared matches someone on your list, you're going to color code it. So you just go in and you pick any color you want, and you color code anything on this new list that's on this list over here. So that's step 1. Then the next thing you do is, after you've done that person's, you go to the first person on this list here who is not color coded. And that's where you start your next grouping. So you're going to wind up ultimately finding people that match everybody on this original list. Once you have filled in this group here, you go next to the first person that does not have a color, did the same thing, and you want to continue doing that. Ultimately, you're gonna have something like this. Now this, this is the ideal situation, which if you wind up with this, wonderful. Chances are you won't, because you've got other things that we'll talk about. But this is the goal here, and in a slide or two, you'll notice that there's a little asterisk in some of these. That is to indicate that that's the person that you started with. That's their shared matches, and sometimes it's helpful to know, well, which person did all these shared matches come from? So this is what you wind up with. This was the blank, number 4, so that's where this one started. The first empty square was down here, person 14, so that's where that came from. So, is that just as clear as mud? Okay. Now, like I said, this is the best case scenario. If you wind up with something looking like that, that's fabulous. What this is indicating is that you've identified 4 of your great-grandparents, the couples, and I don't mean the name couples, great-grandparent pairs. That's what that represents, and that's the goal, ultimately. Now, you're going to have some overlap. That indicates that you're probably dealing with the same side of the family here. So that's what we're talking about when we are talking about overlap. And it indicates that these groupings, these matches, belong maybe to one side of your great-grandparents. That'll make a little bit more sense in just a minute. Okay, so this is a more realistic picture of what you're gonna wind up with, and I'll show you what mine looks like in a minute. But this is more realistic. So you'll notice over here in this column right here, a lot of these are the same as the red. So that's what we call a lot of overlap. So we really want to get rid of this column here because it's really not providing you anything new. Basically, you've got pretty much everything you need right here. So you're going to want to reduce. There you go. You're going to reduce some of the colors that overlap. This, where you see it's the same match, it matches the same people, so you don't need that information. So what I do is really cut and paste. I move this column over here next to this one so I can easily see, well, that one is the same already, it's already red, so I don't really need it.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting names, I presume, in those
Yes.
squares, just the name?
Yes, their Amazon Ancestry ID is what I use. Their Ancestry ID, because ultimately you're gonna need to look at their tree
Okay.
or other information that they've provided. So yes, for the sake of privacy, I didn't put any names in, but that's exactly what you do. And once you've moved this column over next to this one, you can easily see which ones are already red. If you find one here, this little one, the second one here, is not red, go ahead and make it red. So you wind up with just a red column. You can eliminate that gold column altogether, you don't need it. And you continue doing this if you've got overlap in other columns. like I said, you might wanna, indicate which person you started with in each column. And you also may wanna indicate, while you're looking at their information on ancestry, you might as well go ahead and make note if they have a tree or not, because ultimately you're gonna need to look at that. Now, you're gonna, as I said, you're gonna be doing basic genealogy. And when you're doing that, you're gonna be looking for common surnames. That's how you will ultimately determine your relationship. Okay, I mentioned pedigree collapse and endogamy because I have to deal with that, and that really complicates anything you do with DNA. I have endogamy in my mother's family. The couple's name and Richardson's really liked each other. They intermarried all the time. Well, so that is endogamy. And so what you wind up with is you have the same couple on both sides of the family. So this person inherited DNA from this couple on the father's side and the mother's side. So that person inherited more DNA than you would normally expect, simply because of endogamy. This is what mine looked like. And a lot of it has to do with that friendly relationship between my Richardsons and my couples. So I have wound up with 73 matches and 15 different columns. That's why I said if you wind up with 4 columns to begin with, you are so lucky. Well, so did that stop me? Well, of course not. I wouldn't be talking tonight if it had. So I went through and I did what I talked about as far as overlap is concerned. And I got rid of as many columns as I could just simply by going through and seeing where there was a lot of overlaps. And so I wound up with Bowman, which is one side of the family, and Johnson, which is a different side of the family. And then right here, I just am not dealing with couples and Richardsons and Johnsons. I said, the heck with you guys, I'm gonna see what I can work with. All right, now normally, what you do with the Leeds Method at this stage of the game is you go through and you see which ones that you're working with, in this case, these 2 columns of people. You wanna see if they have a tree, if they have any sort of tree. At this point, you don't care how correct it is, you don't care what they've put in there, you're gonna just use that information to get started. Ultimately, once you determine you've got a real connection, that's when you start using correct genealogy and documenting that relationship. But to start out with, you just use what we call quick and dirty trees. You just work with anything that they provide. One thing I want to point out is this right here. I stopped here. I didn't go through the normal Leeds process. Because of this, I thought, well, wait a minute. This #1 match, which has the highest number of centimorgans, is a match in both Bowman and Johnson. Now, how can that be? Because that's 2 different sides of the family. So, that's kind of the dilemma that I was looking at. So I decided, well, I'll have to do some investigating about that particular match. So I decided that I would, my hypothesis is that this particular person inherited DNA from both the Bowman and the Johnson side of the family. So fortunately, I already knew that I had a connection between both sides of the family. If I had not known that, I would have to spend time researching both sides of the family to find where that connection occurred, where a Johnson married a Bowman. I do know that Mamie Alma Bowman on granddaddy's side of the family married Needham Harbert Johnson on the maternal side. So this is my hypothesis that I'm working with at this point. Well, naturally, this person didn't have anything. They had a tree with 7 private people, so that didn't help a bit. Okay, so what I had to do then is research the descendants of this couple, because I'm looking for a descendant of that couple that is this person who's shown up in my matches. And I was looking for a specific surname. So this is what came about from my research. Here's Alma, here's Needham Harbert, and they had 3 children. I researched all of these children, and I determined that Louise Johnson married an advocate. He married another person with the same surname that I'm looking for. Not Johnson, but the surname I'm looking for. So this is the match. This is their child. And when I went through and compared the DNA that would indicate a first cousin twice removed, that's the relationship to my mother. So that did indicate that this is the match that I was looking for. So, to go back to what I said originally, ultimately, good old-fashioned genealogy is going to come into play for you to be able to make any determinations. And you may run across something unique. If you've got pedigree collapse or endogamy or any of that going on, it's going to complicate things. But you may kind of look out, like I did, if you find somebody that's on both sides of the family, especially if I already know that there's been a marriage between both sides of the family. So anyway, that was the result of the research with the Leeds Method. Like I said, I went through the steps pretty quick, and I did not go through the process of taking individual trees and working through that, but that's a part of it. I sidestepped that because I ran across that connection, and it was my #1 match. It was the highest, amount of DNA that was shared, and I wanted to know what's that all about. So that's how I utilized the Leeds Method. So that's about it.
One of the hints, sometimes, everybody knows things, but sometimes somebody mentions something one person had not thought about. And like those private trees, the idea is you search for surnames, and then you make, and ancestry allows you to make a note saying this surname is in that private tree. You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But sometimes, we've done it a lot. Sometimes something, so somebody out there's got something I hadn't thought about, and I want you to speak up and tell me what, give me this, because there might be one person that may not have thought about that,
Right.
because I had to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Joanne. You want to utilize any hints or anything that you can glean.
Yes, that somebody has discovered, and you assume everybody knows it, but there may be one person who hadn't thought
Exactly.
about it.
Phyllis, you said you try to stay between 90 and 400 on the, whatever the term is for
Centimorgans,
below 90, is that just so far distant that you
Yes.
discount it?
Well, you wouldn't discount it for normal DNA work, but for this project, you're
Okay.
zeroing in on basically second and third cousins, because you're wanting to get back to your 4 great-grandparent couples. So that's the reason she limited it between 90 and 400. If you're just doing basic DNA research. You can go down as far as 7 or 8 centimorgans. I don't usually go down that low. I usually stop at 15 because that's pretty far back. If you are just matching somebody by 15 centimorgans, that means your connection's pretty far back. And you're gonna have to do quite a bit of research to ultimately figure out who that is. So this is a good way to get started. That's why I wanted to talk about it tonight, because you can do this with Ancestry. Excuse me. It's simple until you get to actually doing your genealogy, which you can't get around, no matter what you do with DNA. You gotta be a good genealogist.
Have there been a problem in finding who those people were in other methods?
With other methods,
In other words, was there a question, could you not find the?
no, that was not really why I was using this method. I learned about the Leeds Method a few years ago and hadn't really done anything with it. But I heard her give a webinar, and it kind of sparked my interest, like, oh, okay, well, I think I'll go back and work with that some. So I did, and that's the reason I was working with it in this particular case. But if you're working with the other DNA websites, they have a lot of other tools. Chromosome browsers, DNA Painter is a very good tool that offers all kinds of options. But that gets into more complicated DNA issues, and I didn't want to talk about all that tonight. I wanted something simple that can get you started. If you've got an Ancestry account, you've not done anything much with those matches, this is a good place to start, and you may discover some things fairly easily. You want to put in the time and effort to do that genealogy.
And we talked about the difference on Ancestry, that further back, they don't show you matches, but you can, so again, the hint is always to search for the surnames, because they may help identify those further back, if you're working further back, that you need to do it. Because I don't know how many people are aware of that, but some of the companies will show you in common with the people shared matches all the way back to the very small amount. But Ancestry doesn't do that because they focus large database on what is more important than the closer ones. But to look for those further back matches, just search for surname, do genealogical project. And see if you can find somebody in there, and then take them back to see if they match somebody with more points, more centimeters. Anyway, it gets tricky. It's
Go
still
ahead.
confusing, and you still find it confusing after listening to Blaine and all those people talk.
I wouldn't say I find it confusing, I find it challenging. I really do, because I have a situation that I have spent quite a few hours on in DNA Painter, where I have several people that match each other, as well as my mother, on chromosome 3 on a certain segment. And I have tried and tried and tried to figure out that common ancestor. And I can get so far, and I haven't figured it out yet. So, yeah, it's challenging. I just am addicted to it. So I'm fortunate, I live alone, so I can stay up all night long working on this if I want to. I know a lot of you don't have that option. So, I just spend whatever hours I have to.
Well, see, I got it, for the people who know, I read Darwin's theory in junior high when they wouldn't teach them in the high school, so when DNA came out in genealogy, I'm like, yeah, I was already into genetics. So I was already ready for it.
Right. Go ahead.
So, people who have taken just the family tree test, if they're wanting to go home and work on that, if they have their list in order, like centimorgans, can we just go down until we find that range and
Yeah.
just start plugging in a spreadsheet?
Yes, Yes, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that.
That's what I was wondering, will Ancestry download, or will it let you download into an Excel spreadsheet without having to hand type?
I have not seen that ability. What I did was just manually, selected those and printed them off and put them in my spreadsheet. Kathy, do you know if there's a way to do that? I'm not aware of one.
I'm not either.
I don't think so. I had to just manually identify those. And as I said, be sure and go by their ancestry ID. So you can go back then and look at their trees or whatever information they've got.
And can you, for some people here, they don't, because I read that, they don't because of the different companies, there are 4 major companies. But can you quickly tell them the advantage of what the 4 do, because they all are worth doing, all of them do something different. If it's what they need or want.
Exactly. I have tested at all of them. The 4 main ones are Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, and MyHeritage. 23andMe, I think a lot of people do to focus on health traits. It gives you a lot of information, and other companies are starting to do that. There seems to be an interest in that. But they'll give you information about, well, you inherited a predisposition for a certain disease or something like that. I'm not interested in that, so I've not worked with my matches with DNA, 23andMe very much at all. So I've focused on MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA. Both of those have chromosome browsers and tools to facilitate utilizing your DNA matches using those techniques. And then Ancestry offers a great DNA matching tool. The benefit is the trees. If you go in Family Tree DNA or MyHeritage, not nearly as many people are gonna have a tree. And you're gonna have to do a little bit more research to figure out that connection. The good thing about Family Tree DNA is that once you've identified how that person fits into your tree, and hopefully you've put your tree on there, you can connect them to that tree. And Family Tree DNA, right? Kathy told me about this, so I'm stealing her thunder. So anyway, then Family Tree DNA will take that information and help find you more people that actually are connected. So that's a great help. So there are a lot of tools and things that are very helpful.
So like on your tree and Family Tree DNA, you don't have to put everybody in there that you're related to. You just need to put enough people in there that you know that you've matched with. So like if you have a second cousin and that you've matched with your family tree, and you wanna put them on your tree and family tree, you need to put their parents and their grandparents. You need to put the people in there that are needed to get them on your tree. So then when you link to them, when you go back and look at your list of matches, it's gonna say beside their name if they are a paternal or maternal match to you. And that just really helps you in it, because people they've matched with that you haven't even looked at yet, it's gonna connect you then too. Sometimes it will say both, because like my sister and my brother, we're all related, of course, through our parents. So for them, it's gonna say both, but then like from cousins through my mother, it's gonna have maternal. So it's very helpful, and you can get an Excel spreadsheet from Family Tree DNA. You know, you can download a list from that.
I use Family Tree besides Anderson.
And DNA Day is April the 25th, and there probably will be some sales
Absolutely.
that time too.
Yeah, if you're interested in doing more, first of all, if you've already tested Ancestry, upload. You can download your data from Ancestry, upload it to MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and I'm pretty sure 23andMe also will let you do that. So you can upload and get the benefit of all those matches. So once you join more than one, you have a huge database of matches that you can work with to determine who your ancestors are. So DNA has just broadened the spectrum as far as being able to identify who your ancestors are.
Hey, Phyllis, did you upload, your kit number to like GEDmatch?
Yes, I have it in GEDmatch. GEDmatch has a lot of different tools, and GEDmatch has a tool that they will separate your maternal and paternal lines if you've got at least one of your parents' DNA in there. So they automatically can do that for you, so that's helpful. For me, in particular, if I'm just wanting to look at mother's side of the family, I was fortunate enough to get both my parents tested before they passed away. So I've got both of their DNA, so I've got them in those other tools, and then I've got them in GEDmatch. And,
Well, that one got real confusing for me. I had a DNA cousin out of Florida that was pressuring me to upload my kit number to GEDmatch, and I was having trouble doing it. I finally got it in there, and after I got in there, I started getting all these emails, and they're talking about all these different markers and everything, and I'm looking for my algebra book, because I don't know what they're talking about, and it turned into a mess. But
Well-
that's what I was wondering about that. You explained it a lot better than they did.
well,
So-
yeah. Well, I would say, if I'm doing basic DNA work, I use GEDmatch the least. GEDmatch has become well known because it is used by the people that are working with law enforcement to identify, criminals in cold case
Wow, okay.
situations. And those people will use GEDmatch because you've got a huge database
Right.
of people to work with. But they work with people, trying to find people that are alive right now. That's not what I do. I'm looking for my former
For the back.
ancestors.
That's why they were trying to get you in there.
Just stop right now.
Now, I find, because I've
Yeah.
been doing this longer than everybody in the whole room since I started in 1955. And I find, as you go back with the DNA, the further back you go, it's not as helpful. So since most of my family, I've already identified, so many generations back, I don't do as much as I did at first. I still use it, but it is not as useful for me because I already know those people.
Right, Joanne's already done extensive research on her family and has answered probably most of her original questions. I'm still working on a couple of lines because I have, let's see, she's my great-great-grandmother, on the Bowman side of the family, and I have no idea what her maiden name is, where she came from. They settled in Henderson County, which is a Bourbon County. They don't have any documents. So that is a challenge that I'm hoping DNA is gonna help.
I have
solve.
one that I've worked with, and DNA helped show who the mother was. And and the mother is 44 when she has it, but since I was pregnant at 44, that did not discourage me from living at 44. But the DNA, because this person, but she was married 2 times, we have a second name, and the oldest son by the first husband, his DNA matches me, and I'm descended from the son by her second husband. So that has supported the fact that we believe she is his mother for different reasons, but the DNA has also added to this, because her first son by her first husband, his descendants' DNA matchment. And we said we're from her second son, by her second husband. So DNA can come along, even though we don't know who his father is, but that's pretty well, we have other reasons to have looked at this. And he was born in 1832. And she's born in England.
Do those tools
Did you
on
do the
GEDmatch
relative
cost?
funds?
Gabby?
Did the tools on GEDmatch cost? Is there extra cost to those tools on GEDmatch?
There are a lot of tools that are free. They have what they call a tier 1 that I think is either $5 or $10 a month. And there are a few extra tools. So it depends on what you wanna do with GEDmatch, how involved you wanna get, I pay for the tier 1, tools, simply because if I wanna go in there and do something, I don't wanna have to, think about it. I have those available, but, it seems to me like it's $5 a month, but it might have just gone up to 10, I'm not sure. But it's minimal cost.
Family search, do you have that also?
My heritage, Family Search is, where I do a lot of my research.
Okay,
The DNA database that kinda goes along with them is my heritage.
right,
And, so I do have my DNA and my heritage, and then Family Search is what I use in connection with Ancestry when I'm doing my documentation research.
did you do the relative finder? I think that's what.
I
Family
have not
Search-
done that.
Well, you need to do that.
Okay, I'll go home and do
And I
that.
did that, and it helped me settle a few arguments as far as names and people put together.
Okay,
But what is crazy is that for years, I swore, I'm telling you right now, I know close to 500 people that are related to Jesse James.
yeah,
And for years, I've been saying, I am not related to him, I guarantee I'm not related to him. And I said, let me guess, you're related to Jesse James, right? She said, well, as a matter of fact, my mother and, blah, blah, blah. So I did that. Relative
relative
finder,
finder.
and Jesse James popped up. I couldn't believe it. Well, I had to backtrack it. The Missouri connection, that's where it was. Part of my family's from Missouri,
Yeah.
and so on my mom's side.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that's gotta be it right there.
Yeah.
And it was from the same area, but also, you'll find out who all, it mainly picks all the people that's famous that you're related to.
Uh-huh.
Now, it's gonna be 9th cousin, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th cousin, whatever.
Yeah.
I found out I was related to Edgar Buchanan, Pernell Roberts, Dan Blocker, Steve McQueen. I mean, the list, but they build it from the top down,
Uh-huh.
and it shows either the maternal side and paternal side, maternal and both of them.
Right,
And it traces it all the way down with the names, but you gotta watch the lines to see exactly which side of the family it's coming from.
right.
It's kind of, sometimes I have to get the magnifying glass out to look at it.
Sure.
Can you
But
tell us how to do
should-
relative finder? Can you tell us how to do relative finder?
It's your family search tree, the tree you have at Family Search, you sign into relativefinder.org with that same sign-in and password
Okay.
from Family Search. And it pops up and the list just starts running. So I lost track of it. There were so many.
Relativefinder.org.
Relativefinder.org. And somebody on Facebook just threw it out there at some of us.
Right.
It just went wild. So at the next meeting, I want a report from everybody.
I may be asking the same question, I'm not sure. Did this give you information you did not have already?
Yes.
Or you didn't know who those particular people were?
Right. I did not know who this match was, how he was related to me, and since he didn't have a tree or any information out there, I was not able to get a clue until I did this. So, like I said, I focused on that one match once I got to that point where it's like, what's going on here? So I veered off to just deal with that one situation. Theoretically, it's gonna give you a whole lot more information than that. It's gonna point you to, other connections that you can ultimately determine that's related to this set of great-grandparents.
Check everything. One thing in the beginning, I think what his name is, he and I had a very close second to fourth cousin, or something really close, and he'd done his research way back, and I had too. We found our common ancestor. It's the lady who died in about 1706, and so we are not second to fourth cousins or whatever. We are like umpteen thousand cousins, because we have a collapsed line. Apparently, we have, when you inherit, that she's talked about from a collapse line or whatever, you're gonna
Pedigree
get
lines.
more DNA of that type. so that gives you more, so it looked like we were close
Looks like you're
cousins.
closer
No.
related than you really are.
Yeah, but we've done our research and we found the common, one of the common, because somewhere in there, there's an overlap.
So, I'm sorry.
I knew you would, but I'm just, so there, that's the whole thing, everything you do, you have to re-look at it carefully, because that amount of, that you, like she was talking about, may not be true. You may have more than you think, more centimeters than you think, because, and it may be further back, because it may be from two people.
Do you ever join any family name projects or something, if you found that helpful?
I have not done that, I don't really have an answer as to why I haven't, because I think it would be beneficial. So, I'm certainly not opposed to that, but I just personally have not. I spend most of my time looking at webinars and playing around with it. You know, I love to learn new techniques, so, and tools, you know, it's like, okay, this is another way to analyze your DNA. All right, I'm in, show me how to do it. There's a
retired laboratorian, so it's something we have the channel that solve the puzzles.
That's right, that is part of our DNA, right, Jamie? That's part of our DNA, yeah, exactly.
So, I'm still trying to get the full picture. So then, in research, did you find that connection? Did you find those two people to be?
Yes, that's what I did with that, this right here. That's where I had to go in and research the family lines, right here. That was my hypothesis. This has to be a descendant somehow of this couple. So then I had to go in and thoroughly research all three children and their families. This is a daughter who was married twice. I had to look at all of that, research. Ultimately discovered that there was a daughter who married a man with the surname that I was looking for. And then everything related to this person, correct surname, DNA, centimorgans, relationship to my mother, first cousin, second removed, all of that fit. So that's how I concluded that.
And you want to tell them that the National Board, the Board for Certification of Genealogists, they put out their new standards, and they have not done all the research you should do or need to do to meet the standards unless you've done DNA. They came out there just recently, and we got to listen to that. But so they think that's that important now, that you have not done all you need to do to identify your family unless you've done DNA.
Yeah, she's talking about thoroughly exhaustive genealogical research, which is the standard,
Yeah, the top
For-
people.
They feel like DNA research is that important.
yes.
That's standard.
And DAR is, yeah, DAR is now recognizing the validity of DNA. They have a database on family tree DNA that they encourage people to join, because they're doing a lot of research with DNA, and they will allow DNA to be used in proving an ancestor under specific circumstances. If you're trying to prove another child of a proven ancestor, you can utilize Y-DNA to do that under their guidelines. If you are adopted and your biological parents' records are sealed and you don't have any other way to determine who your biological parents are, but you are related to a proven parent through one of those biological parents, you can use autosomal DNA in the first 3 generations to prove that connection. So DAR is utilizing DNA. It's well worth the time and effort if you're really interested to help determine who your ancestors are.
I say go and look at each website and read their privacy policies do. And the one we talked about, family tree DNA, is the one that you don't see advertised. And it's more scientific, when you say, or more privacy oriented, and that's what the DAR is using. Because they also offer the Y-DNA testing and the medical.
Yeah,
They
why,
offer that, which ancestry-
Family Tree offers Y-DNA, autosomal DNA,
And they don't. have-
mitochondrial DNA, so there are several
Okay.
other. What we're working, and I probably should have said something about that, what we're working with here is autosomal DNA. And that is probably the most common
Yeah.
DNA that we're working with, and that's what you're working with in Ancestry, is your autosomal DNA. If you want to, trace, say, in my case, my father's, ancestry, I tested him, I did the Y-DNA, and then I joined, there's a Shoe, project on Family Tree DNA that he joined.
Yeah,
That I
the
joined for
Harrison
him.
Project,
Pardon?
the Harrison Project, have you known that?
Yeah, those are very, very helpful.
Pretty interesting, actually.
But go to each one of those companies and read what they do, because I know someone who's gets so uptight about privacy that she will not use anything from Family Tree, and I keep trying to tell her, Ancestry is gonna help, when she's looking for something, I say, Ancestry, I know Ancestry's gonna help you with this,
See,
and she just can't do it, she's got the test sitting there, but she cannot take it because the idea of the privacy bothers her.
Well, on Ancestry, if you want to, keep your tree private, you can do so. And you can keep it unsearchable, private and unsearchable, to where nobody can see that but you. If you just wanna work on it yourself, you can make your tree private and unsearchable. The other thing I was gonna mention about privacy is on GenMatch, because there's been so much talk. Is my time up? Because there's so much talk that came out about using the DNA on this public database to solve crimes and identify criminals, that sort of thing, there was a lot of uproar about privacy issues. Wait a minute. You mean you've got my DNA out there without my permission? So now you go into GenMatch and you specify whether or not you want your DNA available for law enforcement to use. So you make that choice. And I wanna know if I've got a relative out there that's doing something bad, I want them off the street. So, you know, I have mine available. But I also have the DNA for my cousin on there. And I made that not available because I'm not sure that he wants it available. So you can make that choice for every kit that you have on GenMatch.
Right. Now, on Ancestry, I've shared my tree with several relatives, okay? I don't have a problem with that, because the people that are still alive are gonna be shown as private automatically.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that.
Right.
You know, and as soon as the name pops up, that tells them that one just went, you know, so.
Oh, we're done.
But at Find a Grave, like on, my page at Find a Grave, right up front, I tell people I will always use my real full name. Because a lot of people on there, they're using all these crazy names like, you know, Nutcase Monkey or whatever. You know? I said, we don't know who you are, you're tracing your family, you know, so.
I suggest if you're interested, like a family tree, I said, if you feel uncomfortable, I said, just put the surname and maybe a location, because if somebody sees that you're looking for, you don't, it's not really, if they're hunting you, they're gonna look at the surname and the location, oh, I need to contact this person.
All
So
they
that
do
is
is
something
view it.
that bothers you, you don't have to put every single bit of
Right.
information on the family trees to not be helpful to other people, if that's a privacy issue.
A lot of people get nervous over stuff like that, I don't.
I don't either, because I've decided there's really no such thing as privacy anyway.
Now, if I don't run, it might be different.
If somebody wants to find out about me, they're gonna do it one way or the other.
Yeah, I need to.
If y'all have any questions, like I said, go to Dana Leeds' website and look at her information. Any question you may have, she'll have an answer.
Where is she out of? Is she out of Georgia?
I'm not sure where she lives. I don't know, I can't.
Yeah, 'cause I was talking to Evelyn here a while back because I was trying to trace back my great grandfather's marriage. And I never thought about it. He got married in Georgia, but he got married before the Civil War. And Atlanta burnt down and there went the records, you know?
Yeah,
And what I'm dealing with on that.
that's frustrating, very frustrating.
It is bad.
I'm real